Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you my favorite short books. So these are books that are 300 pages or less, and although I do love kind of my longer books, it's always fun to find a good book that is a little bit shorter. You can finish it in a shorter amount of time, but it still does a good job at kind of wrapping up the whole story. So these are ones, like I said, that are 300 pages and less, which I think is like a good ballpark. They're kind of closely, I'd say they're closer towards 250 pages is kind of like the average. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. These are kind of all over in terms of genre, so I'm really excited to dive right in. First up, we have a poetry book, and this, I'm not really into poetry, but this is from a artist that I really love, and so I was like, I like her music, I like her songs, and so I ended up really liking this poetry collection, and it is Feel Your Way Through by Kelsea Ballerini. Like I said, this is a poetry collection of just like little poems she's kind of written over the years, and I really liked it. As someone who doesn't really enjoy poetry, and like I still don't know how to read poetry just like with the things, but I did really enjoy this. There's some definitely really empowering and really thought-provoking poems in here, in particular talking about eating disorders or school shootings. So there is like very kind of dark subject matter in here integrated with a lot of other things, and so yeah, it's fairly short too. I don't know how many pages this is, but it's like 130. It's kind of the area, so it's a short read, and I think if you're someone who doesn't like poetry like myself, I actually ended up really enjoying this just because I know she's a songwriter that I really enjoy, so you can kind of see that lyricism come through with these poems. So like I said, if you're a fan of Kelsea Ballerini, I think you would like this. Next up, we have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, and this is a book that I read last year and I loved it. I understand why this book has received so much praise, and essentially it is, I think it's best to kind of go in not really knowing too much about the plot, but we follow Piranesi, who is living in this labyrinth style house where it just is never ending. There's rooms with oceans and all this other stuff, and so the book is kind of told from his journal entries, and there's one other person that will come and visit Piranesi in this world, and he's known as the Other, and it kind of goes off from there. There's a lot of themes of kind of solitude and our relationship to kind of the world around us and vice versa. Piranesi is very much kind of involved with, you know, the world. He's always exploring. He finds beauty in the changing of the tides or the seagulls that he just knows and befriends, and I think like that's a very subtle kind of, it's like a love story to nature, which I really enjoy. I will say the first part is a little bit slow because you're just kind of following Piranesi as he kind of, you know, looks at the tides and collects these things and that stuff, but it definitely starts to pick up after you get into part 2, and that's kind of where the mystery aspect comes in as well. And because this is told through Piranesi's journal entries, you do kind of get the sense of an unreliable narrator, which I think is really well done. So like I said, I only know why this book has been given so much praise, and I definitely want to pick up her Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell book as well. So I really like her writing style, and this is compared to her other book, this one is significantly smaller. So if you want to kind of get slowly introduced to this author, I think this is a good place to start. Next, this is one that is fairly short, and it is a quick read because it's written through kind of letters, and it is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society by Mary Ann Shaffer and Annie Barrows. This one is also a movie I think you can watch on Netflix, which I really enjoyed. It has a lot of Downton Abbey people in it, so if you like that, I think you would like this. But it kind of follows this writer. So it says here, January 1946, writer Juliet receives a letter from a stranger, a founding member of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society, and so begins a remarkable tale of the island of Guernsey during the German occupation and of a society as extraordinary as its name. So Guernsey was the only kind of Commonwealth, I would say like UK Commonwealth area to be invaded by the Nazis. So it kind of really delves into this community's experience with having to kind of go through this during the war. There is this mystery of a woman who disappeared, and Juliet kind of stumbles upon this, and it kind of goes from there. And a lot of it, you can tell, are just kind of written as letters, either between Juliet and some of the characters, or like of the town, or between intertown members as well. I really like this. I do think kind of the letter format makes it for a fun read, something a little bit different. And you can kind of get a lot of the character's personality through the writing of this as well, which I really enjoyed. And then there's also the movie if you want to watch it afterwards. But I really enjoyed this, and like I said, it's a very short read. I think this is probably the longest one out of all the books on here, so it's not too bad, and I think the letter format makes it also a quick read as well. Next up, this is a book that I own, but it is all the way on the top of my bookshelf, and I did not want to have to get a chair to go step on it, so I'm being a little lazy. But it is Night by Elie Wiesel. I read this, I want to say grade 8, and I loved it. It is a nonfiction memoir basically of the author's experience in Auschwitz during World War II. It is a fairly short memoir because I can like see, I don't know how many pages it is, but I think it is definitely, compared to the poetry book, I think this is probably the smallest out of the novels. But I think this is a book that everyone needs to read, especially kind of a first count, you know, like eyewitness experience of this point in history. I think we need to kind of keep those stories alive so history doesn't repeat itself. I think it's just like his experience and how he was able to write it, I think is very powerful. It's very moving. I think this book has won a ton of awards, actually, I think, from what I remember learning about in school. But I think it's just really eye-opening. It is terrible because you know that someone has gone through this, like millions of people went through this experience, and he was one of the ones that could, you know, that survived and was able to let his story live on and let the stories of other people who couldn't tell their story kind of live on. And it's very moving, it's very eye-opening, but it's a very difficult read to get through just based on the subject matter. But if you kind of want to learn more about this era, I think this is a really good kind of book to read, and it's a little bit shorter too. I think there's like series or like continuations of this story, but I've only ever read Night, but I definitely want to pick up more of his books in the future. But this is, I think, a really good kind of short non-fiction book to read. Next up, we have a fairy tale-esque story, and it is Nettle and Bone by Knightfisher. This is a book my boyfriend actually recommended to me, and I really enjoyed it. It follows this sister who is the youngest of 3 princesses, and she doesn't really want anything to do with kind of being married off like her sister is, so her parents kind of, just to avoid her, send her to a nunnery where she lives out her days just being a nun, doing crafts, whatever nuns do. So when her oldest sister was set to marry a prince from a neighboring kingdom, she died kind of tragically and very like quickly with mysterious circumstances. And so our main character is very nervous about her sister, who is kind of having to go through the same thing. She thinks something is fishy, and she wants to get her sister out of this situation. So she ends up kind of forming this ragtag team of a dog made of bones, a fairy godmother, a witch, all these other things that she kind of recruits along the way to kind of save her sister. And it kind of goes off from there. There is also kind of like a mild quest that's integrated this as well. But I think if you really love fairy tales and kind of like more ones that are a little bit more grimdark, this one's not like too bad, but it kind of has like a darker fairy tale spin to it. I think you would like this. Like I said, it's fairly short too. It's just under 250 pages, and I think this is fun. Like if you like fairy tales, like fantasy elements, and you kind of want to be like very much kind of in this world and kind of, you know, lose yourself in, I think this is fun. Despite it being short, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I thought the pacing was good. I didn't feel like anything was rushed. I got to know the characters very well, and overall I just really enjoyed it. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite shorter reads are and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.